Hey there, it's Raquel from Tinker Lab, and I have a fun art journal prompt where we're going to use a magazine for inspiration for a painting project. This is the end result that I came up with. Yours will probably look somewhat different, but what's really important here is the process. So to get started, open up some magazines and find a couple sheets that inspire you. I had an old cooking magazine and found some food images that I thought would be really fun to work with, but honestly you could use anything. And the next step, once I had them, you'll notice there's a torn page here and it really doesn't matter, it's all going to get glued down. The next step is we're going to cut these down and have them fill the page somehow. So I just used a Sharpie to draw on the paper and a ruler. Roughly figured out about what size it should be. So my sketchbook or art journal is 8 inches square, roughly. I made them that size, cut them both out, and then we're going to attach them to our sketchbook. The idea here is we're going to use this as a base and then we'll paint on top of it. This is a really good process for when you don't really know what to do. It just kind of gets you started by putting something on the paper. All right, in this case I have a little extra trimming to do, and then we'll glue this down. Now for the glue, you can use anything you like, white glue, Mod Podge. I had some varnish, so I thought I would try that. It's a little smelly, I'm not sure I'd use it next time, but it was kind of interesting. I'm going to show you 2 ways to get this down. This first way I would not recommend. The second way is a little better. The first way, I'm putting the varnish or the glue right directly onto the magazine. And the reason I'm not recommending this, and you'll see this in a minute, is that it just creates the possibility for a lot of bumps and air bubbles under the magazine. Now, keep in mind, this is just an art journal. This isn't some final piece of art that I'm going to sell in an art gallery, so it wasn't super important whether or not there were bumps, but that's just something to keep in mind. Okay, I'm smoothing it out and then I realized, wait, I should probably really start on one side and then get those air bubbles out and move it across the paper. And then if you have something like a bone folder or a ruler, you can press it all down. So I've got a ruler handy and I'm going to bring that out and use it to try to press those air bubbles out. But it was a little bit too little too late in this situation, and there were already some air bubbles caught in there and I just could not get them out. No big deal. Okay, so we'll do it a little different on the other side. This time I'm putting my glue or my varnish directly onto the paper. It gives me more control, and I can also see where the glue has attached to the paper and where there might be some dry spots. So I'll get that all nicely covered. And then starting on one edge of your paper, you'll just press that side down, and then using your bone folder or your ruler or something kind of flat and hard, it could even just be your hand like I was doing there, you can start pressing the paper across your page just to get any air bubbles out. Now again, this is just an art journal, nothing final. If it's not perfect, really honestly it doesn't matter. This is just a fun process and something to enjoy. All right, so the next step, I'm going to use some acrylic paint and I'm watering it down. For my process, I'm using a really wide brush, and then I'm going to do a layer of one color of paint over the entire thing. And this kind of unifies it, and it's very thin paint. So it's just fluid acrylic paint that I'm using. You could use any acrylic paint, a lot of water, and then a layer, and this just creates a unified color for the background. You don't have to do this step, but if you want to go along with what I'm doing here, go ahead and do that next. I'm obsessed right now with turquoise. I don't know why, but a lot of blues and turquoises are showing up in my art, so I thought I would just go with it. Okay, so I will just cover the entire thing and then I will let it dry. Now when that's dry, we get to paint over it. And you can be very experimental here in responding to the painting or the picture that's already there. So I thought I would just work around the edges with shades of turquoise, a little bit of white, turquoise, maybe some darker colors, and just kind of highlight the cake and this bowl of food so that they kind of pop out. I thought I would paint over all the text that the magazine had in it, and honestly, it did not have a plan here. I was just kind of going around with some big brush strokes and thought that I would kind of splotch the paint around. So have fun with this, and also don't hold this too tightly. Really just play with it. If it doesn't turn out perfect or to your liking, consider this an experiment. You're growing, you're learning, you're trying something new. I guess if I were to say like what my process is here, I'm somewhat going with intuition, where I feel like there should be color. All right, so then I thought maybe something a little darker would be good. This is a Payne's Gray, which is like a very dark blue color. Adding that around and in between. You'll notice that I have these big clips on the table. I probably would have benefited from clipping the pages down a little bit. You can see they're wiggling a bit, but I didn't. That's just something that you could keep in mind and kind of explaining why those clips are there on the table. Okay, so at this point, I've got my background somewhat sorted. I might add a little bit more to it. And I'm gonna start thinking about maybe adding in some details to go over the main feature of these pages, which is that cake and the bowl of food. And as I'm painting the background, I'm kind of thinking about that, like what do I want to do next? I'm not really sure, so just kind of futzing around with the background while I'm considering my next move. Okay, well, cake design is super fun. So I thought I'd add some whimsy to this, adding these kind of piping lines as if I'm putting frosting around this cake. I thought I would add just a pop of color. It would be kind of fun and interesting. So for me personally, I love whimsical lines and patterns. I also like hard lines on top of kind of flowing things. So this is my style, and you could try something similar if that inspires you. But again, the bigger idea here is just to paint on top of your magazine page and respond to it and kind of see what it's telling you to do. There's definitely some clues in front of you. If you were to respond to these two magazine images, you'd probably do it pretty differently than I would. This is where my mind was going. So it's just something to keep in mind, that the magazine or the images, they're going to inspire you, give you some ideas, and I would encourage you to just follow those ideas and see where they take you. Okay, really going along with this sort of frosting look. And I love patterns too, so lots of patterns, lots of dots and lines. Ultimately kind of decided that this bowl of food was being swirled around. And I added a little bit more frosting here. Thought that this area would benefit from some dark lines, kind of unify it a bit. And then now I'm just adding final details before I decide it's done. Well, I hope that this inspired you to get some magazines out and have a play with gluing them down in your sketchbook and seeing what kinds of ideas emerge for you in the process. I think you'll learn a lot about yourself, a lot about painting, a lot about experimentation and play. Please don't hold this too tightly, just have fun with the process. You never know where it's going to take you.